Are you embarrassed by being a fan?
Have you guys ever seen Doctor Who?
Doctor Who! I love Doctor Who!
Fandom Cringe. You've seen it? Hell, you've probably been cringe. It's an inevitability. You're young, you're passionate, you engage with Super Wholock as a teenager and then try to erase it from history. We've all been there. Right? Right?
What the fuck is Super Wallach?
So what happens when your passion for your favorite TV show or hobby becomes a part of your identity? You're known as the anime guy, the Star Wars girly, or worse, a Doctor Who fan. Are you doomed to be labeled as a nerd for the rest of eternity? Today, I want to talk about fan shame. Why are we embarrassed to talk about our hobbies, why we shouldn't be, and learn how to embrace just a twinge of cringe. Hi, I'm Josh. I've been involved in fandom spaces ever since I was a teenager, and I love to dissect our relationship with the programs we love. I am talking about fandom broadly, but I will be using Doctor Who as my primary example. But don't worry, you don't have to be a Doctor Who fan to understand this video. So, first off, let's talk about nerd shame. Recently, I met somebody new. A friend of a friend, really sweet, lovely person. And I was really nervous because as an adult, it's really hard to make new friends. My friend introduced me to him, and one of the first things he said about me was, Josh has a Doctor Who YouTube channel.
Huh?
Trauma. Crickets. The world stopped. The impression that I was a hot, sexy, and beautiful woman was evaporated in seconds. I am a Doctor Who fan. That's my identifier. That's how people see me. And worse, I have a YouTube channel about it. That's almost as embarrassing as having a podcast. I joke. But somehow the friendship persisted, thankfully. But I still have this constant nagging sensation in the back of my mind where I'm thinking, my God, they must think I'm a total freak. Why do I feel that way? Is it an overhang of the high school experience? I put together a survey for my audience to get an idea of their experiences with this. One of the first things I asked was, do you lie to strangers about being a Doctor Who fan? The vast majority said no. Instantly, I was feeling like I was alone. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe there isn't any shame associated with Doctor Who. But a follow-up question made me think about it more deeply. I asked if people encourage others to watch Doctor Who. 56% said no, but why not? If it's something you're not ashamed of, why not scream about it from the rooftops? But it was this next question that really solidified my theory. Do you feel the pressure to be a cool fan? It was a 50-50 split. So it seemed to me that people weren't ashamed of being a Doctor Who fan, seemingly believing it to be a good show that they enjoy, but it's the association with the stereotype. The perception of being a fan is something that they might avoid. Why is that? Is there such thing as a good or a bad fan? And if so, what is the right way to be a fan? The good fan. A good fan is seemingly someone who likes a TV show, but isn't too intense about it. They like it, but it's not their entire personality. They've probably watched all the episodes, maybe talked about it online with their friends, maybe they've been gifted a tartar-shaped spatula by a kind aunt, but would never buy it for themselves. They're not someone who info dumps or tries to correct mistakes. They know the correct social cues. They're quote-unquote normal. Not a word we'd love to use, is it? From the survey straight away, I got a feeling of resistance, of being compared to cultural depictions of nerds. Comic book guy from The Simpsons, Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. They don't want to be seen as that type of nerd. They want to be cool. I'm a cool mom. But I have to ask, does a cool fan even exist? And if they do, why do I want to be one of them? If you looked inside my brain, I have so much useless knowledge surrounding Doctor Who. I'm a walking encyclopedia. But I downplay it all the time. And I'm not alone. A few days ago, someone was like, what's the name of that guy who's in Torch with an arrow? And I totally himboed it. And I was like, I think his name might be John. We can downplay our passion in order to fit in. Yeah, I kind of know about Doctor Who, but I haven't made any spreadsheets or whatever. My in real lives call me a nerd, but I'm literally too hot to be a nerd. I know they're joking, but there is a perception that if you're a nerd, you're ugly. A beast, even.
Beast? Yeah. How dare you?
My favourite missing episode, The Beast of Stephen. There definitely seems to be a level of read the room. It's okay to be a fan, but not that big of a fan. If someone calls the character Doctor Who, don't correct them. When I was a teenager, I was definitely one of the people who would say, actually, the character is called the Doctor, not Doctor Who. But as I got older, I decided just to ignore it because the public perception of Doctor Who is the name of the show, and there's nothing nerdier than trying to fact check. It's a social cue I learned by making the mistake. And unfortunately, it took a lot of mistakes to get there, but I eventually figured it out. It seems that a lot of people think that mentioning their favourite TV show in passing is fine. Being a fan is fine if it's surface level. Once you get deep, that's where the cringe sets in. Personally, I was at a party with a friend who is a massive fan. A woman mentioned she casually liked the Matt Smith era, and so my friend launched into a tangent about the Virgin New Adventures book range and proceeded to rope me into the conversation. I admired my friend's enthusiasm, but I could tell the girl got a lot more than she bargained for. And that's the thing, that's the line. The level of fan intensity is where you go from acceptable to cringe. The TV show is normal to watch, but reading novels from the 90s is something that this random person at this party knows nothing about, or realistically, even cares about. How could this person that they just started talking to even engage in the conversation if she knows nothing about the novel range? Instead of a conversation, it becomes someone being talked at rather than talked with. A potential friendship was evaporated because they were too nerdy. Is that what I'm afraid of? Am I afraid to go too far, that I lose a potential friendship? Am I craving acceptance that badly that I won't take a risk revealing my inner thoughts? So what does this mean? Is this video turning into a guide in how not to be cringe as a fan? No. And I hope that isn't the takeaway for you. Acceptability and social norms vary exceedingly depending on the situations and context, which is why this can be confusing for so many people. The Doctor Who fandom has a high number of autistic and otherwise neurodivergent fans. I think a lot of the cringe comes down to fans not quite grasping social cues and realizing that they should maybe discuss something else. I'm autistic myself, so I fully understand that this isn't on purpose. I think patience with people in this situation is important, but I do also think it's important for individuals to work on spotting social cues better, and that talking to people in fandom spaces can be a great place to practice this. And I think that's a great way of looking at it. I think we should have more compassion for these enthusiastic fans, and maybe even a friendlier side being like, hey man, talk to me about the novels and stuff. I am totally into that. But baby, this person doesn't care. Don't ridicule. No one is coming from the same space as you. Identity in fandom space. Identity in a fandom space can mean so many things, from your gender, sexuality, to even just identifying as a geek or, God forbid, a Whovian. Did you know there's even a subculture of Doctor Who fans who hate the term Whovian? Just don't use Whovian. I'd rather die than call myself a Whovian. I never like the term Whovian. Not every fandom needs a nickname. I've always found it really odd. To me, it's just a name, a label, nothing deeper than that.
I believe they're called Whovians.
Is it another symptom of fan shame? A fear of having an identity attached to a television show? Is it just another word for nerd? Or do people just hate how it sounds? It might not be that deep. But there's also a large anti-American sentiment from some UK-based fans, labelling the title of Whovian as an Americanism, due to the term being coined in America in the 80s. In the UK,
I can't believe you've done this.
Freshen your drink, Governor.
Get out.
Doctor Who is of course a part of the cultural zeitgeist. It was invented there, a BBC show, which means it was taxpayer funded. There is this sense of ownership. It's a part of their culture, like scones, colonialism, and transphobia. Just playful mocking, I promise. But just because Doctor Who was invented there doesn't mean people like it. Everyone here in the UK knows about Doctor Who, even if they don't like it. So I think it's treated like Marmite. So fans from the UK might struggle with bullying even more because people around them have seen it They've seen it at its worst, and then they're like, you like that? I've definitely had moments where I've been watching Doctor Who and a friend or a relative walks in, and the scene I'm watching just happens to be the most embarrassing, cringy moment in the entire show. And it's like, I promise it's not always like this, even though it kind of is.
It's a relationship. We've even got a bit of a love life.
Doctor Who has become a global institution over the years. Some places across the world, being known as a Doctor Who fan can be more shameful. And in other countries, people don't even know what the show even is. So the embarrassment of being a fan shifts depending where you are geographically. Most people my age dropped off during or at the end of Matt Smith's era, so the reaction tends to be slightly incredulous, confused, or amused, assuming they even know what it is. I live in the Netherlands, so it's not as well known as England or even the US. The popularity of the show in your country plays a huge part in its acceptability. If it's popular, it's a water cooler show that everyone is comfortable talking about. Casual fans can interact with hardcore fans and find a common ground. But once the show dips in ratings, it can feel as if you can't talk about it anymore. I know for a lot of Game of Thrones fans, when that final season came out, where it wasn't received as well as previous seasons, a lot of the hardcore fans felt a bit left out of the conversation. As an American, Doctor Who is very much seen as a trend that came and died in the early 2010s. Liking Doctor Who in any regard here is often seen as akin to wearing a decade-old fashion style and is deeply unsexy. And going beyond the relatively safe series 1 to 6 range when mentioning the show in a nostalgic context is really weird. As an Australian, I feel the same. It's the same story. Doctor Who was big in the 2010s, and then slowly people stopped watching it. I think a lot of international fans feel that way, and potentially that's why the new Disney Plus partnership is trying to prioritise international audiences. Maybe it needs to be an international success in order for it to live on, whether UK fans like it or not. Does our shame or embarrassment of a TV show disappear once it becomes popular? Or does it devolve into a smug, well, I liked it when it wasn't cool? Do you even enjoy talking about your favourite TV show with normies? Or do you just prefer talking about it in exclusive fandom spaces? In my survey, most people felt somewhat comfortable to very comfortable talking about Doctor Who outside fandom spaces. So maybe that's not a wide felt feeling. But when do you feel uncomfortable to speak up? Do you feel as if your opinion is silenced or ignored? When is it unsafe to be a fan? Bullying. When we think about bullying, our first thought goes to high school. Well, it does in my experience. As someone who is nearing 30, I don't really think about high school that much anymore. I was bullied a bit, like most people were, but I thankfully overcame it. I just decided to be mentally ill in other ways. But for many, bullying and even friendly teasing that happened during school stays with them forever. For a show like Doctor Who, which has been on the air since the 1960s, its fandom stretches across young and old. So a fan's experience during the 90s is different to someone in the early 2010s. As a post-2005 viewer/fan, I would say this is generational. So many of my peers grew up with the show and know it's a proper drama worthy of attention. Whereas older fans inherited a show that had lost a lot of credibility with the general public for decades. And this is true. When the show was cancelled in the late 80s, there was a lot of people from the BBC who hated this program and were very vocal about it. Although I personally love 80s Doctor Who, its ratings were declining and its public perception was off. But since I'm so young and youthful and beautiful, I started watching Doctor Who during the 2010s in the Matt Smith era. It was at one of the peaks of its popularity. It wasn't overly cringe to love Doctor Who at the time, but trust me, it wasn't the coolest thing ever. This was before Super Wholock was known as the most humiliating fandom ever. It was at the height of Tumblr. When I went to conventions, I felt a sentiment from older fans that I wasn't welcome, that I didn't struggle like they did, like they were oppressed for being nerds in high school in the 90s, and I was some popular kid cosplaying as a nerd. May I mention, I looked like this? Far from a popular kid. But there is some trauma associated with it, isn't there? And as I've gotten older, I've come to understand why they were the way they were. I think it was unfair to take it out on me, but I can still understand it. When I was in school during the so-called wilderness years, no, this is during the 90s when Doctor Who was off the air, being a Doctor Who fan was the most uncool and open to ridicule thing possible. I was definitely laughed at, ridiculed, even once had my Doctor Who scarf that my nan knitted for me yanked off from around my neck and stretched out by a group of bullies. When I was in my mid-teens, I got belittled by a group of same-age guys for having a Doctor Who magazine. It was sad because the group included one guy who had watched Doctor Who with me when we were younger. Even the pressure to conform can break established friendships just to survive high school. Being a teenager sucked. All through school in the 80s and 90s, I was bullied, laughed at, and beaten up for being a Doctor Who fan, which resulted in a broken arm when I was 14. From that, I would always hide the fact that I was a fan, being scared I would be bullied again. When I openly said I love Jodie's Doctor, the whole cycle of shame and embarrassment started again. And these are just a handful of stories that people shared about the hurt they suffered from just enjoying a TV show. Bullying sticks with people, sometimes forever. This pain can shape how they interact with fandom. It's why some of them are so passionate and sometimes really angry. It's linked to something deeper. But I don't want to sound like an armchair psychologist, so I'm not going to go any further into that. Some of the insults and jabs were less extreme. But even these comments can still leave us feeling embarrassed. A sentiment that Doctor Who is for children, it's cheap and nasty, it's not the show it used to be. Because the show's reputation can add to our shame. The cheap and cheerful nature of Doctor Who that is beloved by Who fans is something that can be seen as a source of shame and embarrassment. I know that anime fans have this issue as well, where people chalk it up to just being a bunch of cartoons. And they use the word cartoon in order to lower the art form of animation. It's something for kiddies. It's not for the adults. It's not to be taken seriously as its own distinct art form. The reputation of the cardboard sets and tinfoil monsters will never leave the show, no matter how much money and new blood is thrown behind it. And that's true, isn't it? The public perception will change and then revert and then change again. Are teenage fans at the mercy of the general audience's acceptance of a TV show? One bad episode and the bullies will return? Is that the stakes we're playing with? That sounds ridiculous. But for many fans, thankfully, high school bullying is ancient history. I just decided to embrace everything that's true about me, nerdiness included, and my life is better for it. I think it's probably harder to be proud of being a fan if you're a teenager. As long as it doesn't overwhelmingly define your whole personality, being passionate is a good thing. No one is making fun of people for enjoying a football game or fishing or knitting. I guess the old adage of the older you get, the less you care what other people think about you does have some truth to it, doesn't it? Focusing on the positives that your favourite show brings you outweighs the negative, and for some, has led to lifelong friendships. I was reluctant to come out as a Doctor Who fan during my teenage years, but when I started university, I became a lot more open about my interest, joined the Doctor Who fan club, and have made lifelong friends because of it. Discrimination in fandom. I think I would be completely remiss if I didn't discuss discrimination in fandom spaces and how it links to the shame of being a fan. I hope you find this insight into other people's experiences interesting. And maybe think about how you have personally interacted with other people in a fandom space and think, have I always been welcoming? Try to be kind to yourself. If it makes you uncomfortable, that's totally normal. Sometimes it's confronting, but that's not a bad thing. One of the most common responses I received in this survey was from women who felt as if they weren't taken seriously in fandom spaces. This was unsurprising to me, as I've seen it firsthand a million times over. In this article by Rashira Sharma in The Guardian, she discusses how women, especially teenage girls, their relationship to fandom is treated as if it's frivolous and unserious, romanticizing the men in the shows but not having any more critical depth. Whereas when teenage boys engage with sports on a fanatical level, it is seen as normal, if not encouraged. Sharma writes, "Girls are often reduced to simply being hormonal and running after cute boys. Though within the four walls of their bedroom, they might be creating installations and regurgitating inspiration in countless formats, from glitter-adorned photographs to handmade cushions." So for some women, they may feel as if when they tell someone they're a Doctor Who fan, they'll be perceived as someone who is just interested in the men, writing / fanfiction, rather than being a fully fledged nerd like the rest of us. Even though I should say there's no shame in finding the men attractive in the show and writing / fiction. As one fan said, "I'm in it for the heartbreak, not just ogle the actors, that's just a bonus." When the announcement that Jodie Whittaker was to play the first female Doctor, toxicity and sexism became rampant, not just in the news media, but within fan communities as well. I once had someone doubt my status as a fan on the basis of being a woman and liking the 13th Doctor. And when I showed them my classic series connection out of pettiness, they tried to tell me it was my dad's, who doesn't even like Doctor Who. There is this sense that women have to prove themselves as fans. It's the same old trope of when a woman wears like a Nirvana band t-shirt and someone comes up to her and asks her to name 5 songs quickly, or she's not a real fan. It's as if you can't talk about the show without proving that you're a fan first. As a woman of colour, the Doctor Who fandom online has never felt safe. I love YouTube, but I quickly learned not to click on Doctor Who videos, especially during the Jodie Whittaker era. There is so much anti-woke content out there. And many women in the survey said that they didn't feel as if they were taken seriously by men. As soon as I posted a picture of myself, adult she, her, I was suddenly being told that I was cheeky for liking the classic series, and having men I didn't know explaining basic elements of the show to me like I couldn't possibly know already. Women in fandom spaces can be quickly sexualized, and their wealth of knowledge can be discarded. I recently saw a creator hop over to TikTok so she could share her love for the Japanese series Ultraman, and so many comments were just, "Whoa, I've never seen a girl talk about Ultraman." Almost like anything she said just went through one ear and out the other. Some of these men are not excited because she shares a similar interest. It's not on a deep, meaningful connection. They don't want friendship. They want sex. It's another reason not to disclose your fan status as a woman. Being a fangirl automatically makes you a potential girlfriend. Being told I would make a good Romana cosplay in a schoolgirl outfit. I'm an adult and work at a school, so I find it off-putting. And the standard not knowing the lore of the history of the show. And it's the same story over and over again. Sexualization and not taking their opinions seriously. And look, there is nothing wrong with finding a woman attractive online. But if your only goal to interact with a woman is to be sexual with them, that's an issue. Especially when these women who are entering fandom spaces are there to talk about their favourite television show. And unfortunately, even the stars of the show aren't immune from sexualization. I was at a local convention with Katie Manning, and I saw a fan ask her to sign pictures of her nudes. Katie was a class act about the whole thing and turned him down respectively, but by God, it made the room a little awkward. Our trans siblings also encounter situations where they're not taken seriously. Since transitioning, I've noticed some of my old friends who knew me pre-transition take my opinions less seriously. It's been 6 years though, so I've kind of just gotten used to it. Many people of colour face similar notions of not being taken seriously as well, or arguably worse, being treated as if they have to speak on the behalf of an entire group of people. Being Asian means I'm expected to have a stronger take on stories like Talons of Weng-Chiang than I do. I think it's a good story with awful racial politics, but I've had white people on both sides of the argument try to tell me what I should think about it, and it's uncomfortable. Something like this can really hold people back from wanting to join in the conversation. Being put on a pedestal and deciding the consensus for an entire community is a lot of pressure for just one person. A really interesting perspective that didn't even occur to me was religious trauma. I couldn't talk about it at all in church because I was forced to attend a church that considered all movies and TV shows worldly. Ageism plays a huge role in fandom spaces also. You're either too young to know what you're talking about or you're too old and old school. There doesn't seem to be a happy medium or general consensus for anyone. In the Doctor Who fandom, there is a large queer following. So like in real life, we experience homophobia in fandom circles, but in my personal experience, it's been rather a welcoming society. There are, of course, the homophobic, biphobic comments I get on my videos, but that's kind of YouTube and life, unfortunately. They don't really faze me too much, honestly. But when I was a teenager, it would have really upset me. But now I'm old and decrepit, so nothing fazes me, babes. But either way, it's clear that people of diverse backgrounds have different factors that affect their relationship with fandom. Like, you're not just being bullied for being gay, you're being bullied because you're a nerd too.
You are gay!
Rejecting fandom cringe. Now that we understand why some people are ashamed of their fandom status, we must ask, how do we move on from it? How do we embrace being a nerd? I think let's start with some positives of being a nerd. For me, personally, the thing I love about being a Doctor Who fan is the sense of community. Of course, we all fight on Twitter and argue about this stupid show, but at the core, I've met so many incredible people that I'm glad to call my friends, especially those who like, comment, and subscribe. I will milk this parasocial relationship for monetary gain. I'm not above that.
Give me your fucking money!
I love the creativity that Doctor Who inspires in people, from artwork to animation to film to writing to cosplay. Aidan from the 50% Doctor Who podcast filled out the survey as well and talked about his shame about sharing his creativity and passion about Doctor Who with his real life friends, even going so far as to not share his podcast on his socials. But the more open I've been about it, the more confidence I've found in that side of myself, and I think the show is much more confident for it. This is a show that has inspired people to work in science. It's brought couples together. How can something like that be shameful? Even if we're looking at extremes, author Beth Axford mentioned someone like Ariana Grande, who is a massive pop star, but is also a massive musical theatre nerd. And now she's being celebrated for being in the film adaptation of Wicked, something that during high school would have been kind of embarrassing, but because she's this massive pop star, pop royalty, it's seen as super cool. It's another level of acceptability. I think largely that many of our non-fandom friends actually enjoy hearing you talk about something you're passionate about. I personally love hearing my friends talk about things I know nothing about and seeing how happy it makes them. They never look so beautiful and remind me of why I love them so deeply. If I feel as if I've been talking about Doctor Who a lot, they tell me not to worry about it, as they like hearing about my love for the show. As to my self-confidence, I feel a lot more confident outwardly expressing my love for the show. Not having to hide my passion or love for something makes me feel loads better, as I can be 100% authentic. So, what if I decided that I don't care what people think about me as a Doctor Who fan? What if I embraced that part of me? Oh. What if I carried around a sonic screwdriver and offered people jelly babies? Would that make me happy? Probably not, actually. Definitely not. I think when we observe other Doctor Who fans, we start to pick up on behaviours that we don't want to see in ourselves. We see fans at conventions doing cringy things and think, oh God, why? And we internalize that and say, that's not for me, babes. So we get scared about being seen as one of these people. Fandom spaces are filled with outcasts, and I'm one of them. This is where we come together for better or for worse. Do we say, I'm a Doctor Who fan, but I'm not one of those weirdos, when we secretly are? Do we say, yeah, I'm obsessive about Doctor Who, it's my favourite TV show, and completely own that? Do we get to the point where we say, if you don't like me because I'm a little bit cringe, then is this friendship even real? Should a grown adult really care what other people think when really there isn't any consequences apart from a twinge of cringe?
So I'm guessing you're a Doctor Who fan?
So, we've been on a bit of a journey through time and space. I can't even say it. It's just cringe. I hate it. Horrible. I don't think I'll ever truly be confident in being a Doctor Who fan. I think it'll always be my secret shame. I never encourage my real life friends to watch it. It's something I'm embarrassed to be seen watching. Even unpacking all of these reasons, I still don't find myself at a place of acceptance. It fills me with dread knowing that when you search my name on Google, I end up on a Doctor Who fandom wiki, where I'm discussed in past tense like I'm dead, where my stupid tweets about my complex and fluid sexuality are used to try and label me so I can be categorized, that any potential employer looks me up and sees I have a YouTube channel about Doctor Who and bases my work and personality around it. Every time I meet someone new, they know that I'm attached to a corporate product, whether I like it or not. But being a Doctor Who fan is who I am. I shouldn't be ashamed. Many people don't even have a hobby. They work, they eat, they go to bed. I'm lucky to have something I feel passionate about. I'm so lucky to have met so many amazing people in my life because of this show. Yet, I'm still ashamed. I love unpacking my inner thoughts and deciding not to fundamentally change my behaviour.
insufficient data.
Yeah, you never fucking know the answer when it's important.
Well, I hope that isn't too much of a sour note to leave us on. I hope you've got to unpack some of your own insecurities around fandom, and maybe you've come to a place of acceptance. Let me know in the comment section below. Have you overcome fandom cringe? What's the cringiest thing that you've ever witnessed? Let a bitch know. Thank you to everyone for submitting your responses. I read all of them, and they were such great food for thought. I couldn't have done this video without you, so thank you. Sorry I can't include everyone's responses or we'd be here for about 5 hours. Name 5 hours to prove you're a real fan of time. If you'd like to support the channel, you can donate to my Ko-fi linked below. But more importantly, a like, a comment, and a subscribo goes a long way. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Josh Snares YouTube channel.